Heihachi failed to capture the god of fighting, but still, he had hope. He managed to secure the blood of Ogre in the last tournament. Heihachi attempted to create a new life form with great power by combining its genetic material with his own. The experiment failed, however. Heihachi learned that to integrate Ogre's genome into his, he needed the Devil Gene. In order to obtain the Devil Gene, Heihachi knew who to search for. Heihachi looked for Gene's whereabouts, and during the search, Heihachi obtains a photo of a man seriously burned all over the body. Heihachi could tell who this man was. It was his son, Kazuya Mishima, whom he killed 20 years ago. He thought that he could still obtain the Devil Gene without having to find Gene if he could secure Kazuya's body. He also learns that the body was stored at a cutting-edge biotech firm called G Corporation, and they are planning to create a new life form with it. Heihachi ordered his Tekken Force to raid G Corporation's laboratory, but what they found there wasn't Kazuya's corpse. Surprisingly, it was Kazuya, revived by G Corporation. The Tekken Force got annihilated by Kazuya, and Heihachi opens the 4th Tekken tournament, with the Mishima Zaibatsu as the prize to lure Kazuya, which is 2 years after the last tournament. Just like the previous tournament, 20 fighters from different countries with different purposes enter the tournament, and the fierce battle begins again. Jin Kazama, who flew off after beating his grandfather in the last tournament, went to Brisbane, Australia. Ever since Heihachi's betrayal, Jin loathed his grandfather. He abandoned the Mishima Ryu karate, changing his fighting style to traditional karate. One day Jin heard that the opening of the King of Iron Fist Tournament 4 was coming soon. He enters the tournament to destroy the evil Mishima bloodline. Jin Kazama's rival, Horang, was drafted into the military and was assigned to a Spec Ops unit. Horang found out about the announcement of the King of Iron Fist Tournament 4 and slipped away from the base. Ling Xiaoyu, who receives an anonymous email which is assumed to be from Jin, enters the tournament with their pet panda. Brian Fury, Julia Chang, Yoshimitsu, martial law enter the tournament to fix his dying body, to retrieve her research on ecosystem restoration project, which was being supported by G Corporation, to gather necessary funding and manpower for saving refugees, to earn money after his restaurant went bankrupt, respectively. Li Chaolan was expelled from the Mishima Zaibatsu 20 years ago. He thought that it was pointless to kill an old man who probably don't have long to live. He moved to the Bahamas and becomes the owner of a humanoid robots manufacturer and a major stockholder of G Corporation. One day he discovered a huge sell-off of G Corporation stock online. Li's intuition told him that the Mishima Zaibatsu is up to something, and also to gather test data for Kanban. He enters the tournament under a false name, Violet. Armor King suffered from a disease, and after the events of Tekken 3, he was killed during a bar brawl in Arizona. The murderer was Craig Marduk, an undefeated Valley Tudo fighter. He was sent to prison for 10 years. King swore revenge and paid for Marduk's release from prison and waited for Marduk at the tournament. Eddie Gordo kept his promise that he would teach his master's granddaughter the art of capoeira. But soon thereafter, Eddie abruptly disappeared, leaving Christy with a letter saying that he's going to avenge his father's death. Christy entered the King of Iron Fist tournament to find Eddie, as this was the only clue that can lead her to him. A middleweight boxing champion of the world, Steve Fox thought that he could find his biological parents if he becomes famous. One day Steve was ordered by a mafia group to throw a high-stakes fight, but he refused and instead won the fight, and he became their target. He thought that the mafia would eventually catch and kill him no matter what. Motivated by this realization, Steve entered the tournament. The mafia hired Nina Williams to assassinate Steve, and with a little research, Nina discovered that Steve was a participant in the tournament. Nina infiltrated the tournament to kill her target. Lei Wulong, having learned from an informant about the identities of the syndicate and the assassin, entered the tournament. Paul, who ridiculously failed to win the last tournament 2 years ago, and Kuma, who dares to challenge him again, signed up for the tournament. And lastly, Kazuya, being able to control the power of the Devil Gene within him after 20 years with help from the scientists, entered the tournament despite knowing it's a trap. And so the 4th King of Iron Fist tournament began. Paul, at the sight of Kazuya Mishima, who's been long believed to be dead, was excited about facing off with Kazuya, a rival he hadn't fought in over 20 years. However, got defeated by Kuma. On the contrary, Kazuya defeated strong opponents one by one, including Li Chaolang, and made it to the semi-finals. Jin also got through the semi-finals, and his rival Horang got arrested by the Korean military near the end of the tournament. So it looked like this battle between father and son was about to happen. However, on his way to fight Kazuya, Jin encountered the Tekken Force soldiers and was taken prisoner by the soldiers. Kazuya made it to the finals after winning Jin by default and faced Heihachi. Heihachi led Kazuya to Honmaru, a Mishima Zaibatsu compound, and there he found his son, Jin Kazama, tied up unconscious. The devil gene within him activated by the other half of the devil inside Jin and brainwashed Kazuya's mind. Kazuya blew away Heihachi with his devil power and awoke Jin to retrieve the other half of the devil. After regaining consciousness, Jin fought Kazuya and defeated him. Right after that, Heihachi challenged Jin to take his devil gene for himself, but Jin also defeated Heihachi. But when the time came to fulfill his dream of putting an end to the Mishima bloodline, Jin faltered after seeing a hallucination of his mother, Jun Kazama. As a result, Jin dropped his grandfather and said, "Thank my mother, Jun Kazama," and flew off into the night once again. While the Mishimas were fighting among themselves, a lot of things happened within and without the tournament. Julia Chang failed to recover the reforestation data. Law failed to win the tournament and was penniless. Christy Montero couldn't find Eddie anywhere in the tournament. And King finally avenged his master, Armor King, on Marduk, but spared his life. Brian Fury was rescued by Yoshimitsu after being found injured in the Mishima facility. Lin Xiaoyu was saved from the evil plans of Heihachi by Yoshimitsu also. Panda left the arena after the conclusion of the tournament. Steve entered the tournament to look into the mystery of his birth, and with Lei Wulong's help, he discovered a shocking truth that he was actually Nina Williams' son. He was conceived through vitro fertilization from Nina Williams' egg without Nina's knowledge. Although Nina was told that Steve was her son, she kept up with her plan. But after Lei Wulong arrested several members of the syndicate, she abandoned her mission. Honmaru, the Mishima Zaibatsu compound. There were Kazuya and Heihachi fainted after getting beaten by Jin. They woke up at the sound of unfamiliar helicopters. The helicopters were filled with a squad of Jack Force sent by G Corporation to destroy the Mishimas. Soon the Jack robots broke into the compound. Kazuya and Heihachi were forced to work together to fight the Jacks, until Kazuya threw Heihachi into a group of Jack Force and turned to his devil form and flew off. The Jack Force squad seized Heihachi and exploded. Codename Raven, an international intelligence agent, witnessed this from a distance and reported that Heihachi Mishima is dead. And there was a man standing in the fire. It was Jinpachi Mishima, who was stolen everything he had and imprisoned underneath Honmaru by Heihachi. 50 years ago, after being imprisoned under the compound, Jinpachi died of starvation, however got resurrected by a mysterious entity. He was waiting for this moment to come for 50 years. He broke free from his prison when the explosion broke the seal restraining him, and took over the Mishima Zaibatsu, which was originally his. However, Jinpachi was being taken over by the evil spirit. In the hopes of finding someone strong enough to free him before the spirit takes him over completely, he opens the 5th King of Iron Fist tournament. Kazuya enters the tournament to track down those who betrayed him. Lee takes part in the tournament to have a rematch against Kazuya and take the Zaibatsu from him. Bruce Irvin, who was unseen since the second Tekken tournament, heard Kazuya, who was thought to be dead, had fought in Tekken 4. He sensed something was going on behind the scenes, and enters the tournament to find out. To stop the devil gene growing stronger within him, Jin roamed around the world. Hearing that the Zaibatsu would soon hold the 5th King of Iron Fist tournament, Jin went out to end his bloodline. While Hwoarang was under detention in the embassy for dereliction of duty, he received a letter from his master who was thought to be dead. Hwoarang was discharged from the South Korean military a couple of months later and went to Japan with his master. Roger, a bioengineer kangaroo created by Dr. Boskonovich, escaped from the Mishima laboratory during the second Tekken tournament and met a female kangaroo. Then they had a child, whom they decided to name Roger Jr. Then one day, the 5th Tekken tournament was announced right after Roger's abduction, and the young junior became suspicious of the relation between the tournament and his father missing. Lily, the daughter and only child of a wealthy Monegasque oil magnate, revels in fighting despite being beautiful. While she was taking part in street fighting tournaments around the world unbeknown to her father, she receives an invitation to the 5th Tekken tournament from an opponent she defeated in San Francisco, which is Forest Law. Lily soon realizes that the host of this tournament was the Mishima Zaibatsu, the main source of her father's problems. She decides to enter the tournament and put an end to her father's business troubles. 2 years ago, Jane survived the attack of the Tekken Force thanks to Gunjack. The day after, Jane was found and rescued by a G Corporation freighter. Jane joined the robotics division of G Corporation and successfully created Jack 4. Jane used data collected from Jack 4 and completed a newer model, Jack 5. She saw the upcoming King of Iron Fist tournament as the perfect chance to test the latest model. Disappointed that she was unable to recover the reforestation data during the last tournament, Julia returned home and resumed her research. However, her work was going through difficulties. And then she received a letter addressed to her, announcing the King of Iron Fist Tournament 5. After being rejected by Michelle Chang 21 years ago, Ganryu established a sumo dojo in Hawaii, and he was happy at how things had turned out. One day, Ganryu was watching a video of the King of Iron Fist Tournament 4 and spotted Julia Chang, reminding him of Michelle. He immediately fell head over heels in love with her. He also learned that Julia had entered the tournament to recover the reforestation data from the Mishima Zaibatsu. Christy failed to find Eddie and returned to Brazil. She could finally meet her grandfather since he was released from prison after a long incarceration. Unfortunately, he was diagnosed with an incurable illness, and he was given only 6 months to live. But after hearing that it might be possible to cure the disease with the technology from the Mishima Zaibatsu, she immediately boarded a plane to the tournament. As a boy, Feng Wei was raised as a disciple by a Kenpo master who was so skilled he was known as Shinken. When his master scolded dojo, Feng killed him. Since then, he started to attack strong martial artists one by one. Feng saw the secrets of the God Fist scrolls stolen by the Mishima family, and enters the 5th King of Iron Fist tournament to do so. Feng also went to Japan and severely beat Asuka's father and destroyed his dojo. Asuka arrived at the scene, and Lei Wulong, who was investigating serial rampage incidents at dojos, tells her that Feng Wei is planning to enter the tournament. The witness of the attack on Honmaru, while on a mission to look into the Mishima Zaibatsu and G Corporation, Raven tries to figure out the truth behind the tournament being held despite Heihachi's death. A member of the Russian Spetsnaz, Sergei Dragunov, receives a mission of capturing Devil Jin and makes his move. Mokujin started to move once again upon the emergence of Jinpachi. An old friend of Jinpachi Mishima, Wang Jinrei, receives an invitation to the King of Iron Fist Tournament 5 along with a letter from Jinpachi. Believing his friend to be dead, Wang Jinrei was quite surprised by the message and decided to enter the tournament to look for Jinpachi. Brian Fury, who got rescued by Yoshimitsu, was sent to Dr. Boskonovich to receive technological upgrades. Boskonovich installed a perpetual power generator in him. After the upgrade, Brian was overwhelmed by his own power and attacked Dr. Boskonovich and several members of the Manji clan who tried to stop him. A few days later, Brian learns that the King of Iron Fist Tournament 5 will be held. Brian decides to enter, thinking it as the perfect test for his newly installed perpetual power generator. After Brian left, Yoshimitsu couldn't forgive him for returning evil for good, and went searching for him. After the previous tournament, Xiao Yu, who heard the history of the Mishima family from Yoshimitsu, cried when she heard Heihachi had been killed. Inner sorrow. Inner sorrow. One day, Xiao Yu met a self-proclaimed genius who boasted he could invent a time machine if only he had the money. To fund the invention, Xiao Yu decided to enter the tournament with Panda. Surprisingly, Xiao Yu was not the only one who mourned over the death of Heihachi. Kuma fell into despair after hearing the sad news. Then he realized the Mishima Zaibatsu was in trouble, and to save the Zaibatsu for his master, he enters the tournament. Reflecting on his loss to Kuma in the last tournament, Paul enters the King of Iron Fist Tournament 5. After failing to win the last tournament, Marshall stayed in Japan to make money as a dishwasher since he couldn't afford the fare for returning home. One day he hears that Forrest had been in an accident concerning Paul Phoenix's bike. Law decides to enter the 5th Tekken tournament to pay for his son's medical bills. After discovering that he was actually a creation of the Mishima Zaibatsu, Steve vowed revenge. He enters the tournament to stop the Zaibatsu from making another victim like him. Nina stopped her assassination attempt on Steve and decided to meet her sister Anna to uncover her past. But the moment she saw Anna, everything came rushing back. They fought for days. In the end, the sisters agreed to settle their rivalry in the King of Iron Fist Tournament 5. Craig Marduk, who lost to King in the previous tournament, donned a black Jaguar mask and challenged King to a rematch. Enraged by the assault on his master's honor, King resolved to settle the score in the King of Iron Fist Tournament 5. Even though Armor King had been killed, a new fighter entered the King of Iron Fist Tournament 5 donning the black Jaguar mask. Many things happened with a short period of time since the 4th tournament, such as conspiracy, revenge, success and failure of different purposes. During the King of Iron Fist Tournament 5, Bruce reunited with Kazuya Mishima and aided him in his plot to take over the G Corporation. Jag 5 successfully collected combat data and safely returned to G Corp. After a long struggle, Roger Jr. finds his father, but he soon discovers that Roger was living the easy life, unconcerned about his family and fatherly responsibilities. Paul's rematch with Kuma was fierce, and though victorious, he was utterly exhausted, leaving him unable to continue the tournament. King won against Marduk once again. Marduk conceded defeat and King offered his hand in friendship, reconciling the difference between the two. While returning to the waiting room, Craig was attacked by Armor King. Steve Fox destroyed the Mishima Zaibatsu laboratories and finally cleared his conscience. And his mother Nina finally won against her sister Anna. Ganryu accidentally entered a Mishima-owned laboratory during the tournament and retrieved Force rejuvenation data which Julia was looking for. He handed the disc to Julia and confessed his love to her, but she only accepted the disc. Feng Wei was successful in retrieving the treasured Godfist scroll from the Mishima Zaibatsu during the 5th King of Iron Fist tournament and left. Therefore, Lei Wulong failed this mission. Asuka, who had also been after Feng, couldn't find him anywhere. She sets up a rivalry with Lily after winning against her. Yoshimitsu's repeated meddling hindered Brian's test and hopes of unlocking his ultimate power, but Yoshimitsu couldn't finish him also. During the middle of the King of Iron Fist Tournament 5, it was discovered that martial law was working illegally in Japan, and as a result, he was immediately deported to his home country and couldn't proceed the tournament. Christie was defeated and returned home with a heavy heart. Li Chaolang, after learning the fact that the one who had opened the tournament was not Kazuya but Jinpachi Mishima, lost interest in the tournament and returned to his home in the Bahamas. Ling Xiaoyu breathed a sigh of relief when she heard Heihachi had not truly died, and left the arena with Panda. Wang was utterly defeated in the King of Iron Fist Tournament 5 by Jin Kazama. On the contrary, Hwoarang succeeded in defeating Jin. However, in the next instant, the defeated Jin morphed into his devil form and defeated Hwoarang afterwards. Upon hearing the incident, his master Baekdu-san gives up the tournament. Dragunov, who had been after Devil Jin, couldn't locate the devil and returned home without any success. Jin met and battled his great-grandfather, Jinpachi Mishima, and in the end defeated him. Jin walks into the Mishima Zaibatsu throne room having claimed the Zaibatsu. And with the defeat of the force that awakened him, Mokujin falls to the ground, lifeless. Meanwhile, Heihachi, who was thought to be dead, was actually alive. He was blown away to a nearby graveyard by the blast, and woke up only to find out that the King of Iron Fist Tournament 5 has already ended.